A 19-year-old was found face down at the water's edge. 2 autopsies were performed on his body. One of them, the one the state carried out, has still not been released. Second one found something on the back of his head. And on national television, a former prosecutor pulled up the diagram, looked at it, and asked a question that nobody has answered since. Not why they took his lungs, why they kept his neck.
This is what I can't get away from. Control room, please show Joseph Scott Morgan the autopsy diagram of the victim's occipital bone. Okay, I don't care what anybody says. I do not care if an archangel lands on this anchor desk. If he lies to me, I'm using handcuffs for his wrists and a rope for his wings. You hear me? Look at that again. Put it back up. He has deep reddening subcutaneously on the back of his head. Nowhere else. It's not on his neck. The back of his neck anyway. Don't see it on the back. Don't see it anywhere else on the body. So I really don't want to hear a lame explanation that it's lividity of the blood sinking to the back of the body. Number one, the body was on its face. But that said, they kept the neck and the lungs. Lungs to see if he drowned. Neck. Why would they keep his neck? I can't get away from this, Joe Scott Morgan, and I don't care how angelic the friends appear, and they may be angels. I don't know that yet. But you can't get away from this, Morgan.
That is Mancy Grace, a woman who spent her career putting people in prison, looking at the autopsy diagram of Nolan Wells and saying she cannot get away from it. She is not the only one who cannot get away from it. Nolan Wells was 19 years old, a college football player. On the 4th of July, he went out to Horn Island off the Mississippi coast on a boat with a group of people who have publicly described themselves as his friends. He never came home. That is close to the entire uncontested record of this case. Everything past that sentence is disputed, and it is being disputed in public by people with very large microphones. Comedian and commentator D.L. Hughley has refused to let it go. On his show, he was asked directly whether he believes Nolan Wells was murdered. He did not hedge.
So, of course, Nolan Wells still continues to be a hot topic. And for everybody that asks me why are we still talking about Nolan Wells, one man's Nolan Wells is another man's, Amanda, what was the young Natalie Holloway. One man's Nolan Wells is another man's Natalie Holloway. Remember, we knew all about Joran van der Sloot, and we knew all about Aruba, and we knew all what was happening. Do you think that Nolan Wells was murdered?
I do.
You do?
100%.
I think that Mississippi's gonna be Mississippi.
This comparison is deliberate. Natalie Holloway, the American teenager who vanished in Aruba, that case lived on the news cycle for the better part of 2 decades. The public learned every name. Investigators wanted to speak to anyone who had been anywhere near her. Hughley's argument is that the same energy did not arrive here. But this video is not about D.L. Hughley's opinion. It is about the document that came after it. Around 4 in the afternoon, a call went out from that boat.
Detail assistance, Vicky speaking. How can I help you?
Hey, we're at the west tip of Horn, and our bilge pump stopped working. We're sinking. Can y'all please come? We have a membership.
All right, of course. How far is the work coming up, sir? Can you give me a description? Ankles? Hello?
Hey.
Yes. How far is the water coming up, sir?
It's coming up. We're just sinking. I don't know. Like we're going down.
All right. Well, let's get you going. Membership number or phone number listed on the account, sir.
I don't know the phone number. It's either. I think it's. Try that.
All right.
I know we have a membership, like guaranteed. I don't have the tag on here.
Unless you have a membership number or anything, it's okay. I'll get you over to the captain. What's the best phone number to reach you at?
Reach me at 2.
Particular phrases in that call, if it's to be believed, Nolan don't die. Sure, he's dead. Is he dead? Nolan, OMG. Wake the F up. It goes on. I thought he was on the check his chest. That, if it's to be believed, suggests that Nolan was on that boat. Tatum says
The stated emergency was mechanical. The bilge pump had stopped working. Water was coming up to their ankles. They said they were sinking. But listen to what the dispatcher asks, and listen to the answer. She asks whether everybody on board is in good health otherwise. The answer that comes back is, yeah, everybody's on board. Nancy Grace has raised specific phrases she says can be heard in the enhanced version of that recording. Someone saying his name, someone asking whether he's dead, someone telling him to wake up. She is careful about it. She frames it as, if it's to be believed. If it is to be believed, it places Nolan on that boat. The group's account, relayed by former officer Brandon Tatum, is that he was not. Now hold that and follow the boat. 9:56 in the morning, it leaves the original dock. 11:14, it arrives at Horn Island. Around 4, the distress call. 4:31, the boat leaves Horn Island. It is towed roughly 3 miles. Then the tow ends. 5:44, it arrives back at the original dock. Then it travels to Fort Bayou. 6:06, it returns to the original dock again. Then back to Fort Bayou, then to the boat launch, where it is finally pulled onto a trailer. Two things do not sit right in that sequence. The first is the movement. Why does a boat that has just been rescued go to a second location, come back, and then go out again? The second is the gap. That boat sat docked for 1 hour and 13 minutes. A boat that was reportedly sinking hours earlier, sitting in the water for 73 minutes. You would think the first instinct is to get it out. The family did not accept the county's findings. They commissioned an independent forensic autopsy. It came back with a finding on the back of Nolan's head. The official language is discoloration. Judge Greg Mattis, who spent decades on the bench, does not use that word.
Yeah, I mean, what else? Why is it only there in the back of your neck, which is coincidentally how you drown somebody? You put the head in the back of the neck and not let them up, and they try and push up, but you got the head down, so the head bruises in the back of the neck because somebody tried to hold it down or did hold it down.
His argument is a mechanism argument. He is saying that pressure applied to the back of the head and neck and held there is how a person is drowned by another person. The hands push down, the victim pushes up. The marks are left behind in one place and one place only. It is the most serious allegation any of these commentators has made. It is also the point where this story becomes genuinely difficult, because the forensic record does not line up neatly with it, and almost nobody covering this case has said so. Here is what the second opinion actually established.
No, you can't, and we can't get away from it until the investigation is concluded on the part of the state medical examiner's office and the authorities. And in Mississippi, and I can promise you this, as the day is long, they're not going to release this information because it's an ongoing investigation. I know everybody wants it. Now, what we do have is a second view. We've got a second set of eyes on this from a highly accomplished forensic pathologist, I might add, former chief medical examiner for DC, and he went over Nolan's body very, very thoroughly. And he in his statements relative to this area states that he cannot make heads or tails of it at this point in time because it's compromised, this area I'm referring to in the occipital area of the head, because it has been compromised through decomposition. Now, he did a multi-layered dissection, and what that means is layer by layer, the skin, sub-Q fat, down through the muscle, which had not previously been done in this manner, according to him. I don't even know if it's annotated in the state medical examiner's report because it hasn't been released yet. They're still waiting. It's pending multiple things. How many times have we heard this over the years? They're doing their own histological studies, which means the tissue samples. And also the big part to this, Nancy, is going to be the toxicology. And we know that takes some time. And it's not just going to be about alcohol. It's going to be everything in the spectrum.
That is Joseph Scott Morgan, a forensic expert, walking through it on Nancy Grace's program. The second opinion came from a highly credentialed pathologist, a former chief medical examiner for Washington, D.C. He performed a multi-layer dissection, skin, subcutaneous fat, down through the muscle. According to Morgan, that had not previously been done in that manner. And his conclusion on that area was this: he cannot make heads or tails of it. Not because there is nothing there, because the region has been compromised by decomposition. So take the 3 positions and lay them side by side, because they do not agree. Judge Mathis describes bruising on the back of the neck. On Nancy Grace's program, reviewing the diagram, the reddening is placed on the occipital bone, the back of the skull, and it is stated that it is not on his neck. Judge Mathis calls it fresh bruising. The pathologist who dissected it says the area is too decomposed to reach any conclusion at all. And D.L. Hughley described the organs as having been withheld from the family. What Nancy Grace states is different and colder. They were retained. The lungs were retained to determine whether he drowned. That is standard, which leaves her question standing exactly where it was. Why keep the neck? 3 men are looking at the same autopsy and seeing 3 different things. That is not a detail. That is the case, and none of them are looking at the full picture because the state's report has not been released. The histological studies are pending, the toxicology is pending, and it will not just be alcohol, it will be the full spectrum. Meanwhile, the group's account has held up in some places and cracked in others. Their explanation for the boat is detailed and, to anyone who boats, coherent. The bilge pump failed, water rose high enough to knock out the batteries. They needed a tow. Once out, they drained the water through a hole in the hull and plugged it. Brandon Tatum says they walked him through it, on the water, at the locations where it happened. He says they showed him video from the day. He says he saw text messages from the young woman Nolan was with, and that in those messages she describes hearing the group calling for Nolan to get on the boat, and says he did not. Then there is what happened when Tatum sat across from Nancy Grace. He was asked about phone reception on Horn Island because if there was no service, that would explain why Nolan's own phone shows nothing from that day.
Have the friends taken polygraphs?
Well, from my understanding, all but I believe one took a polygraph, and from what was told to me that they all passed. And all of the ones that took a polygraph took one without a lawyer. And they cooperated with law enforcement. So from my understanding, everybody took a polygraph test. Why do you say that's from what you
understand? Did they tell you they took a poly and passed?
Yes, ma'am. They told me that they did it. I wasn't there. So that's what I'm saying from my understanding. They told me that all the boys except one, which is Warren, I believe, took a polygraph test. All of them did not have lawyers and did it and cooperated with police. Warren also cooperated with police. I just believe he didn't take a lot to take the test, but Warren is the young man that I interviewed. So according to what they told me, they all took a lie detector test and passed. And it's an equivalent of a lie detector test. It's not a traditional lie detector test, but it's the same theology of trying to get to if a person is lying. I don't know the name of it. It's an equivalent of a lie detector test. It's a different methodology. I don't believe it was a polygraph test. I believe they took other stressors in order to analyze if the people were telling the truth or not. So then the answer to
did they take a polygraph would be no.
Well, yeah, I think it could be semantics because they took a test to analyze whether or not they were being truthful in their statements, and that certified test, they passed it. It just wasn't considered a traditional polygraph. I think it's a more advanced way of doing it.
Brandon Tatum. Hold on. In a nutshell, Joe Scott, there is a difference between a polygraph, which measures all sorts of body signals, your sweat, your breathing, your heart, your blood pressure, all sorts of things, and an audio verification test. Big difference.
That is the polygraph exchange, and it matters more than it first appears. Tatum's position has been that the group took tests past them and did it without lawyers present. What Nancy Grace establishes is that a polygraph and a voice stress analysis are not the same instrument. A polygraph measures multiple physiological signals: heart rate, blood pressure, respiration, perspiration. A voice stress analysis measures stress in the voice. Tatum concedes it was voice stress analysis. Her position is simple. She is not saying they did anything. She is not saying they didn't. She wants a polygraph. Earlier in that same interview, on the question of reception, she cut him off mid-answer with a single word, objection, and pressed until he conceded the point. He had said the reception was not great. Not great is not none. Strip away the forensics and you are left with behavior. And behavior is where this case gets uncomfortable. Start with the call itself. According to the account given publicly, one of the young men contacted the United States Coast Guard to report Nolan missing. Judge Mathis cannot get past that.
Yeah, he also said that he told the United States Coast Guard and Nolan's mom that he was missing.
You call the Coast Guard, and you don't call his mother first. You call the Coast Guard. I mean, these are teenagers. This isn't like these are middle-aged people who, yes, you are a responsible enough person. Okay, I'll call the Coast Guard, and I know how they operate, and I know how to communicate with them, and I know the questions they're going to ask, and I know the answers to give. No, you are a teenager. You need an adult to handle those situations, and you need a trusted adult that you go to. You go to either your own parent, you call. You say, Mama, my man is missing. Nolan is missing. What do we do? And they say, call 911 and have you call his parents. Maybe he called them. Well, no, we have his phone. Oh, he left his phone? Yeah, he left his phone. Why did he leave his phone? That's what would have happened. Would you call the Coast Guard if you're a teenager and your man ends up missing? Would you call the Coast Guard first? Or would you call your parents and say, what do I do? Or call his parent and say, what do I do? You're a teenager. You're calling somebody close and informed. Somebody close that you can trust and is informed and that's close to him as well. And they didn't do that. Instead, as you say, they called the Coast Guard and told them what? How did they know? How long was he missing? Had they found the body? What'd you call the Coast Guard for? What'd you call the Coast Guard for? He told you he was going to be left behind. Did he have a curfew? Did he tell you he was going to be this amount of time? Why is it that you felt the need to call the Coast Guard at any point before he had been found drowned? There was no need. My man partied. Oh, he must have spent the night with her. Oh, man, Nolan getting it in. Shit, we might not see Nolan for a couple of days. Such and such and such and such. Nah, that's how you feel. If you trust that everything is all right with your man.
Follow his logic because it is the sharpest reasoning anyone has applied to this case. If you are a teenager and your friend is missing, you do not call the Coast Guard. You call an adult. You call your own parent. You call his parent. You say, my friend is missing, what do I do? But it goes further than that. Their own account is that Nolan chose to stay behind, that he stayed on the island with a young woman. If that is what you believe happened, then nothing is wrong. There is no emergency. There is nothing to report. As Mathis puts it, that is the mindset of a teenager whose friend stayed back with a girl. You do not expect him for a day, so why call anyone at all? His conclusion is the line that should stop you. You only decide you need to call the authorities if you think something is wrong. Then there is the phone. Nolan's phone did not leave the island with Nolan. It left on the boat, in the group's possession. The explanation offered publicly is that it is common for people to leave their phones on the boat so they don't get water damage.
Yeah, his friend doubled down that Nolan wanted to stay. He also said that it was common for people to leave their phones on the boat for it won't get water damage.
No, not either. You know, no teenager in the world, they would risk the salt. What is him? Salt water if you drop it? If you drop your phone in any water, you can drop it while you're on the dock. Drop it while you're in the boat. Drop it. So you can drop it in any place in the area of salt water. And so no, everybody, all those young people, it is not common. That's a lie. It is not common, and I have no facts to verify it other than common sense. And I don't believe that a lot of those teenagers actually leave their phone somewhere unattended for hours. That's what he would be suggesting. Because if you come there, you're not coming to the island for 10 minutes. You're coming to hang and party. And you gonna put your phone somewhere? You think, I don't believe young people can go an hour without their phone. I don't believe teenagers can go an hour without their phone without start shaking.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out, because it still don't make sense to me, because they never told Nolan mom that they had the phone. She had to use an app to find out, so.
Correct. Yeah, they had it and didn't turn it in. The only way they found it, as you just said, his mother had to use an app to find the phone, as opposed to them saying, oh, we have Nolan's phone. And the news comes on. Oh, Nolan is missing. Let's call his mom immediately. We don't have her number. Walk to the house.
He calls it what he thinks it is, and he is honest that he is arguing from common sense rather than evidence. A phone can be dropped anywhere, on the dock, on the boat, in the shallows. The saltwater reasoning does not survive contact with how people actually behave. And these were teenagers on an island for a full day, not 10 minutes, a day. But the part that lands hardest is what happened afterwards. They had his phone, and his mother was not told. Christine Wells had to use a tracking app to locate her own son's phone. When it was finally handed over, she opened it. And according to her, there was nothing. No saved picture, no snaps from that day. And she opened both accounts before the 24-hour expiration window had closed. Her reason for finding that impossible is the most human detail in this entire case. Anyone who was ever around Nolan, she says, will tell you he was always filming, always taking pictures. He would walk into her room while she was getting ready for bed and ask her to take a picture. That was Nolan. And on the only day that mattered, there is nothing. Which brings us back to D.L. Hughley and to the word he refuses to let this group keep.
I don't know what happened, but I do know this. Maybe the hang up for me is that they keep bantering, throwing around this word friends. We were his friends. We were his best friends. Who was it? This young man this young man right here.
If Nolan could dig himself out of his grave right now, he would. No doubt. Nolan would be livid is an understatement. Nolan would never want anything pursued this way at all. I think he would be really upset with his parents about how they went about the situation. I think he generally would. I don't think he wouldn't support it. I know that for 110%. I know he wouldn't support any of it.
Best friends? Like I was told the story on the radio earlier this week. I had a best friend, a good friend of mine named Kevin. And Kevin and I were best friends. We would get into it all the time. 16 years old, he had a great job, moved in with his girl. The girl had a kid by somebody else. There was always friction. One day Kevin asked me to get his back with him, and normally I would, but this time I got so mad at him and told her to leave the girl alone. We had a fight, an argument ensued. I'm like, fuck you, go. And Kevin got killed. And I was so hurt by that. And a lot of people in the neighborhood, I remember, I told the story on the radio, a dude named Roger said, you let that boy to drown by himself. My mother didn't want me to go to the funeral because she thought that the people were they were so mad at me. She thought they were going to harm me. He was my friend. And I had to say, because if that's your friend, that's the last time you're ever going to see him again, ever. Ever.
He is explicit that he is not calling anyone guilty. His argument is narrower and harder to answer than guilt. It is that nothing described here resembles friendship. They held the phone. They did not attend the memorial. When asked why, one of them explained that he had been receiving death threats and had to put his own safety first. Hughley's answer to that is a story about a boy named Kevin. They were 16. Kevin asked him for backup one day and Hughley refused him. They fought. He told him to go. Kevin was killed. A man in the neighborhood told him afterwards that he had let that boy drown by himself. His own mother did not want him at the funeral because people were angry enough that she believed he might be hurt there. He went anyway because it was the last time he would ever see him. He says that until about 10 years ago, he was still checking into hotels under Kevin's name. That is the standard he is holding these young men to, not evidence, grief. The family has stopped waiting. In the space of 24 hours, court documents were filed serving subpoenas on Snapchat, WhatsApp, TikTok, Meta platforms, and the location tracking service Life360. They are not asking for a summary. They are asking for everything. Current and prior usernames, passwords, email addresses, phone numbers, display names, IP addresses tied to every account, all communications, chats, posts, and stories. And here is why that matters. Deleted does not mean gone. According to digital forensics experts, when a file is deleted, the data does not immediately disappear. Fragments survive, sometimes for weeks. More importantly, phones keep logs. Even when the content is unrecoverable, a log can show that something was deleted and when. Even without a password, interacting with a phone leaves a trace. Touching the screen leaves a trace. Trying to power it down leaves a trace. A snap that vanishes for the user does not vanish for the company. It lives on their servers, and it can be subpoenaed. WhatsApp is the exception, end-to-end encrypted, which means even Meta cannot produce the content. The state's autopsy report remains unreleased. The toxicology remains pending, and the case is moving toward a grand jury.
So,
Yeah, a lot of moving parts, and I'm waiting to see about this grand jury and see what they say, because it's based on how the prosecutor presents that case to the grand jury. Grand jury hearings are one way. You don't have those who testify at the grand jury do not have the ability to have legal counsel. They are questioned by the prosecutor in front of the grand jury with the questions and the objectives that the prosecutor is trying to achieve. No defense attorney can say objection, or they can say, let me tell you an alternative scenario or narrative. That doesn't occur. So I don't like grand jury in and of itself. I think grand juries should be abolished, but in the case of, in this case, we have to trust that the prosecutor wants to be fair and not protecting, as has been the case in the history of Mississippi over the decades. Protect those who have been accused of racial hostility and racial killings. And so that's what we hope we're not seeing, a cover-up. That's the best way to put it.
There is a $125,000 reward for information leading to the truth about what happened to Nolan Wells. Nobody has been charged in the death of Nolan Wells. Every serious allegation in this video belongs to the person who made it, not to us, not to you. And the most credible voice in all of it may be the one who refuses to pick a side. Nancy Grace has said plainly that those young men may be innocent, that they may be exactly what they appear to be, that she wants Brandon Tatum to be right, and she wants this to be easily explainable once all the facts are in. She just isn't going to stop until they are. Because 3 questions are still standing. Why did the medical examiner keep his neck? Why did his mother have to track down her own son's phone? And why did anyone call the Coast Guard on a day when, by their own account, nothing was wrong?
This dude, and he's getting, and he talked about how he got death threats. You didn't talk about how his mama got death threats. You had his best friend on there maligning their relationship. I don't know that dude. I don't know who did what, but the only person I know for sure is innocent is that boy's mama. I don't know nothing about them, and I know for sure none of them was friends.
Until those are answered, this case does not close. It just gets louder. Someone on that island knows what happened. Someone on that boat heard it. Silence is a choice, and it has a price. $125,000 for the truth. If you know something, call, subscribe, and stay on this case, because the moment we look away, it closes.